Prime Time is brought to you by Ford and your Ford dealer, winning the world over with their exciting line of 1990 cars and trucks. Have you driven a Ford lately? Now from TV1 in New York, Diane Sawyer and Sam Donaldson.
We begin tonight at a familiar place that is familiar to virtually everyone in the country. It's the house that Walt Disney built 25 years ago in Central Florida. The sweeping expanse of Disney World. And it is a world unto itself, a kingdom that includes 3 different theme parks and draws millions of visitors from everywhere. Now keep in mind that Disney is the largest employer in the Orlando area. So it's curious that it seems possible now the magic touch of the Magic Kingdom is no longer enchanting a lot of the people who live there.
Yes, that lovable Mickey Mouse is now being called the mouse that ate Orlando. Disney owns about 28,000 acres of land in Florida, about twice the size of Manhattan, most of it in Orange County. So far, about 5,500 acres have been developed. But Disney, which has its own government, a deal virtually unheard of in American business, is planning on expanding, an idea some folks in the Orlando area are not too crazy about. Chief Correspondent Chris Wallace discovered it looks like Disney's long honeymoon with Florida may be coming to an end.
I don't think Walt Disney would be happy with it at all.
Let's all give a cheer.
Do you really think that Disney is in the business only to make people feel good?
The whole world wants to thank you, thank you.
It's going to destroy our wildlife, our rivers, our fish, everything that we're fighting for in Florida.
Just because you're here. Thank you, Mickey. Thank you, Donald.
Welcome to Disney World, the world's biggest tourist attraction, with 9 million visitors a year. And this, of course, is the Magic Kingdom, perhaps the most elaborate family playground ever built. But now some of Disney's neighbors here in Florida are calling this the Tragic Kingdom, a sprawling development run by a big corporation that they say is only interested in making more money. Disney World may be a nice place to visit, neighbors say, but you wouldn't want to live around here. One complaint is that after years of explosive growth, Central Florida has begun to choke on Disney's success.
I'm sorry to inform you the car parking areas are filled to capacity.
Tourists face gridlock at the gate, while local residents face traffic jams that stretch for miles. Also stretching for miles, an ever-growing line of motels and fast food stops. Disney says it's been good for Florida, providing 32,000 jobs and paying more than $130 million in taxes last year alone. But on Jim Phillips' radio call-in show, that's beginning to wear thin.
Bill, what's on your mind?
Before Disney came here, I made a living. Since Disney's been here, I'm still making a living. They haven't helped me a bit. All they've done is cause turmoil.
And Disney keeps getting bigger, building apartments and shopping malls. Even an amusement park for adults called Pleasure Island, featuring liquor and lambada.
Come on now, let's get dirty here. That's what we like.
The Mouseketeers never dreamed of anything like this. Disney is also letting its environmental image slip. For more than a year, sewage from this Disney treatment plant seeped into Reedy Creek. The creek is a refuge for all kinds of protected wildlife. Everything from bald eagles to alligators. The Federal Environmental Protection Agency hit Disney with a $375,000 fine, one of the largest ever imposed in Florida, and ordered the problem corrected. It all came as an unpleasant shock to Bill Partington, a conservationist who has spent 25 years working to protect the delicate environment in this part of Central Florida. And what happens when an area like this gets polluted?
Well, the pollution will come down from someplace like Disney or wherever. And this feeds right down through the whole Everglades, the part of the state that is most precious to most of us.
So polluting Reedy Creek is a very serious matter.
It's an extremely serious matter.
Another serious matter, toxic waste at the Magic Kingdom. State authorities uncovered illegal storage sites on Disney property and hit the company with another big fine, this time $150,000. Then, last summer, more problems. Disney and 5 employees were hauled into court on 16 counts of animal cruelty. The charge, trapping, beating, and shooting wild birds, such as vultures, hawks, and falcons. Disney pleaded guilty to a reduced charge and paid a $95,000 settlement. Bill Partington says the episode reflects Disney's priorities.
They have mechanical animals that jump up when you come by in your boat. They have trees that are made out of plastic. They have the environment very much under control for themselves.
And the real environment, real animals, real trees?
They have a few of those in some places, but they don't overdo that sort of thing because they're not as reliable as our mechanical ones.
Let's look at the good side of it, though. The good side of it, you show me where there's a 43 square mile development done any better in the United States of America, if not the world.
Dick Nunes is president of Walt Disney World. He calls the company's environmental record outstanding.
You start to add it all up. Hazardous waste, polluting Reedy Creek, killing wildlife. I mean, it doesn't sound much like the people behind Bambi.
I think that when you're Disney, you are open to criticism, and there's a great deal of focus on Walt Disney when maybe there shouldn't be.
It was this past January, though, that Disney really found out about criticism. The company needed to expand that sewage treatment system and got some help from the state of Florida. Permission to issue $58 million in tax-free bonds. It was legal, but that single Disney project wiped out the state's bond allocation for a 6-county area.
We were going to sell bonds to help build affordable housing. Now we can't do that this year because they grabbed them all.
In neighboring Orange County, Commissioner Vera Carter was outraged.
These are tax-free bonds that should only be used to serve a public purpose.
In fact, Disney promised back in 1967 never to use tax-free bonds for private building, saying the idea is repugnant to us. But now Disney's Dick Nunes says he can't remember that promise.
Can't a company that made $703 million last year afford to build its own sewage treatment plant?
Chris, we are, as you know, owned by a lot of people. We have a responsibility to our stockholders. The Reedy Creek Improvement District has a responsibility to provide our services. And we have to have the capability of expanding.
Disney chairman Michael Eisner is driving that expansion. He has produced soaring profits at Disney, but it has not always been popular. In Paris last year, he was pelted with eggs and charges of cultural imperialism when he announced a French Disneyland would open in 1992. Back in Florida, Eisner has been accused of betraying Disney's legacy to make a buck.
Hi-ho, it's home from work we go.
Walt Disney was already an American icon when he came to Florida in 1965. But Disney brought far more than his remarkable image.
The most exciting, the most important part of our Florida project, in fact, the heart of everything we'll be doing in Disney World will be our experimental prototype city of tomorrow. We call it Epcot, spelled E-P-C-O-T, Experimental Prototype Community of Tomorrow.
What Disney described was a truly radical concept. He wanted to build an experimental city where thousands of people would live and work and go to school, a living laboratory of urban development. Disney offered Florida an extraordinary plan, but with it came an extraordinary demand. To build his complex, Disney said he would need his own government, total control over his 28,000 acres here. The proposal was, and still is, unique in the history of American business. And one more wonder of Disney World, the state of Florida said yes. The Florida legislature drew a line around the Disney property and passed a law written by Disney setting up a special government. It was, in effect, a new county of Florida called the Reedy Creek Improvement District.
So we'll call the meeting to order.
This is Reedy Creek's Board of Supervisors. It is government of Disney, by Disney, and for Disney. This government can zone and condemn land, set building codes, and inspect construction, even build a nuclear power plant. As for elections, Reedy Creek is a politician's dream. There are only 37 voters, handpicked by Disney to live in trailer homes on Disney property. In 23 years, there hasn't been a single contested vote. Paul Pickett was chairman of the Orange County Commission when the legislature passed the Disney law.
You were one of the very few officials here in Florida who oppose giving Disney its own government. Why?
Well, because nobody should have that kind of power unless you're a government. I would love to have that kind of power for either one of my companies. Anybody would. And no private money-making business should have government power.
But Tom Moses, the man in charge of the Disney government, insists the Disney company has no special influence.
We respond to them just as any local government would respond to the taxpayers in any city or county in the area.
You view yourself as an independent government?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Moses, the Reedy Creek Improvement District law was written in large part by Disney lawyers. Your Board of Supervisors is elected primarily by Disney. Your taxes are overwhelmingly paid by Disney. I mean, aren't you in effect working for Disney?
I don't think so.
How can they say that? As an elected official in any other municipality knows very well, you have to make decisions that are sometimes unpopular with your constituents. I'm sure that they never do.
All in favor say aye.
Aye. And they do not make decisions that are adverse to Disney's interest.
Disney critics point to the competition over studio theme parks. Universal Studios is finally set to open its new Florida attraction after years of local and regional government review. But Disney's competing MGM studio attraction opened a year ago and took a year less to build. That project was reviewed by the Disney government, by people like Cookie Miller.
I was the only plumbing inspector on all of Disney property.
One plumbing inspector for all of Disney?
That is correct. Theme park, MGM, under construction, the Dolphin and the Swan hotels, the beach resort, the Caribbean.
One man?
One man.
It's widely acknowledged Walt Disney World has an excellent safety record. Its buildings are structurally sound. But when the Disney company has a construction deadline, the Disney government is not always allowed to stand in the way. Cookie Miller, who retired last summer after 10 years at Reedy Creek, says sometimes that means bending the rules.
Was there building done at Disney without permits?
Portions of buildings.
Construction without full blueprints?
Yes.
Is that the way it's supposed to be?
Well, if you go by the book, there should have been a red tag put on it and no construction done.
Sometimes we did it right, sometimes we missed it a little bit.
Ray Boland was a field engineer on major construction projects at Disney, who was forced out in a personnel dispute.
Some of the things, yes, you did make them up as you went along. Otherwise, it wouldn't have proceeded. It would have never been done on schedule.
I would respond by saying that I can't see any evidence where we have done anything wrong that's affected the overall construction of Walt Disney World. We design, engineer, build, and operate and maintain with great quality. And I'll let the record speak for itself.
Whose happiness is blooming all around us.
Despite the extraordinary government power, there's one thing Disney still hasn't built here. The one thing that got Disney its own government in the first place. The company used the name Epcot for another tourist theme park, but they never used Walt Disney's idea.
Mr. Nunes, it's been 20 years. There's still no city here.
Well, isn't there a city here? I mean, in a way, if you think about it, tourists are real people. And every night on the Walt Disney World property, we have 40 to 50,000 guests staying on our property.
In Disney World, about 20,000 people will actually live in Epcot.
But Mr. Nunes, this is not an experimental city.
Well, Chris, you tell me, what is an experimental city?
Beyond the Greenbelt are Epcot's neighborhood areas of single-family homes. This is one radial neighborhood.
I got to tell you, I think anyone who looks at that film of Walt Disney back in the mid-'60s knows that he had something else in mind.
Well, and we're not finished yet. We still have another 25-year dream that we just announced.
Disney is planning another huge development, covering 4,000 acres and including homes and apartments. But as soon as it's built, Disney says the project will be incorporated into a neighboring county. All those voters removed from the Reedy Creek Improvement District. Disney's government still won't have to trouble itself with real citizens.
People we talk to say Disney has changed, that it has become just another big company that's motivated by the bottom line.
Well, of course, I don't believe that. The thing that has changed, we are bigger, and we're growing. But still, tell me what company has done more to create a lot of happiness for people of all ages.
I think it's more toward the profit motive now than Walt Disney ever envisioned. I think he would be very upset that his dream has not been developed. He wanted to really contribute something to mankind.
Well, we're convinced we must start with the public need.
They're not doing that. They are purely and simply a profit-making machine. That's it.
Chris Wallace. A few footnotes. After all its problems, Disney has now appointed a vice president of environmental policy. As for those tax-free bonds, Disney has first shot at more if they become available this summer. And despite objections from surrounding communities, Disney has declined so far to step aside. Also, Disney has announced plans to build another new theme park in Southern California, not far from the original Disneyland. And two communities are vying for it, Anaheim and Long Beach. We'll be back with more of Prime Time in a moment.